Welcome to the India FinTech Diaries, the only podcast focused exclusively on the Indian FinTech market. I'm Elroy.
And I'm Hemant. In each episode, we dive into the latest trends, ideas, innovations, business models, and personalities that are shaping India's FinTech landscape.
We also invite amazing guests who are innovators and industry players that are driving the change that is helping make financial services more modern, innovative, and inclusive in India. Come join us as we explore the changing landscape of FinTech in India.
Hello and welcome back to India FinTech Diaries. I am Hemant Kshirsagar and I'm joined by my co-host Elroy. What's up, Elroy?
I'm doing great today, man. This week we bring our focus on credit and BNPL to close, and we actually have a very special guest with us to help close the series with a bang. Our guest today is a FinTech veteran who self-founded some of the most innovative firms in the payment space. It's my great pleasure to introduce Nitin Gupta, founder and CEO of Uni. Welcome to India FinTech Diaries. Nitin, how are you doing today?
I'm very good. Thanks for having me over, Elroy. It's a pleasure to come here and join you guys on this fantastic series that you've started.
Nitin, when I was going through what you've done in the past, right, I came across the fact that you worked in Lehman in 2008. So what's the story of your stint in Lehman? That must have been a really surreal experience for you at the height of the subprime crisis. What was that like sitting at the sidelines?
I think I was partially responsible for it in some ways.
Really? We should blame you for that, is it?
So I graduated from Ahmedabad in 2006 and I joined Lehman right out of campus in London. And after interning across multiple desks, I made my choice that I wanted to be in structured finance. And structured finance was basically securitizing assets and more fancier assets than mortgages. Mortgages was run of the mill by then. So I still remember that I securitized a pool of free performing credit card loans. And so think of this, right? There are these credit cards, receivables, and for some reason people didn't pay them. So they were converted into loans, which people had to pay back over time.
Yeah.
And this pool of receivables we bought from a bank and we securitized it. And when we securitized it, we pulled out a AAA tranche, rated AAA by S&P and Moody's.
Yeah.
So if you think about it, right, India at that point of time was, I think, BB minus or something.
Mm-hmm.
And here you have a bunch of people in UK who have defaulted on the credit card loans once, are now reperforming. A section of that is being rated AAA. It's so, when you think about it, right, it just feels the system was so broken, right? If something like this could be pulled off with rating agencies actually playing their part. So that's what I did. To my credit, right, I was the soldier. The general or the commander was somebody else. So that's the only saving grace I have when I tell the story. Then when 2008 happened, actually I was at that point in time, my boss said, Nitin, we are hiring people like you and paying them too much. Why don't we do this? Why don't you go back to India, hire people like yourself, which is basically top 100 JE rankers, and pay them in Indian rupees instead of paying them in pounds. We'll still be paying them 2x of what they would get in the market, but we'll still be saving 75% of what we end up paying if they came to London. I said, great idea. So I was setting up a desk for Lehman in Mumbai when the entire crisis happened. And I still remember, we didn't imagine Lehman to go down. It was just too big to fail in our minds. My boss got his brother into Lehman like a week before Lehman went down. I bought Lehman stock and Lehman bonds, until the last day. We were just buying up because we ever felt internally that Lehman would go down. So it came like a big surprise. I still remember Monday morning, I'm going to, I woke up and my friend from Hong Kong calls me. Hong Kong was ahead. He's like, dude, Lehman filed for bankruptcy. Kyun mazak kar raha hai is best mein? Couldn't believe it. And the fun part is Lehman is still unwinding. They're still paying back their bondholders. So it was such a complex bankruptcy that 13 years later, Lehman is still unwinding. It's unbelievable.
Interesting, Nitin. So that brings me back to the time that I just finished my MBA around that time. And at that point, I passed on in 2009, right around the time when this entire subprime crisis effects started coming to India.
Yeah.
And surprisingly, one of my first jobs was in this rather little-known company called BillDesk, where I spent like 1 year, right? And then after that, after BillDesk, I spent a good 3+ years working at a business intelligence firm. And post that, I finally ended up joining EY. And when I was at EY, this whole fintech thing started happening around the world. You started having these buzzwords thrown around. And suddenly one fine day I realized that I'd actually worked for a fintech firm and a regtech firm at the same time in the last 4 years. So I think for you, it must have been equally interesting to see this entire space evolve over the last 10 years from where fintech was not a label to where it is today, especially in your stints in PayU and Ola. Could you talk a little bit about that as well?
When I started PayU in 2011, the number of people who were paying online were like 5 million.
Yep.
I remember 2015, we would calculate this number, and that number was probably 25 odd million. Today, that number is north of 150 million people who actively buy online. That's how thing has grown from 5 million to 25 million to 150 million. It has grown 30x in the last decade. And that's beautiful, right? That has unlocked so much. Business models are scaling that much faster today than what they did 5 years ago and 10 years ago. With the same product market fit, right? If you can today scale 6x faster than what you could scale in 2015 or 16. And with the same business model and same product market fit, right? Let's say Make My Trip happened starting 2016 versus starting back then. They would scale in 2015, 16 6x faster than 2010 or 2011. Flipkart is a better example, right? Flipkart happened around that time. If Flipkart did X in 2010, 2011, they would do 6x 2015, 2016 and 30x in 2021, surely because the market is that much deeper. And that has unlocked so many opportunities because of that.
I think a lot of it has to do with the way data access also has been democratized to a large extent.
Yeah.
Which has played a very big role in how this entire space.
Big credit to you. Big credit.
Very big credit to you.
Yeah.
So otherwise also, just talk to us about the PayU story and how you guys actually built it out. You must have faced a lot of challenges other than the fact, one, of course, the obvious challenge that you just listed out that a lot of people were not using it. But along with that, there must have been a lot of other challenges that you guys must have faced while scaling that up.
The beautiful thing about any industry is that if it has not changed in 5 years, it is ripe for disruption.
Correct.
In 2011, the payment gateway industry was exactly like, so when BillDesk and TechProcess happened in early 2000, right? And CCAvenue came in like mid 2000, right? They disrupted. They introduced India to payment gateway. They led that charge. CCAvenue democratized it for small, medium merchants. But then these guys became sane. For the next 5 years, there was nothing meaningfully that changed. They all did all the innovation from 2000 to 2005, 2006. So when I came in 2011, right, the industry was ripe for disruption. E-commerce was taking off thanks to Flipkart, thanks to Make My Trip, right? New set of merchants were coming in. These merchants were data-oriented, customer experience-oriented. They wanted better conversion rates. Everybody felt, this e-commerce was like the gold dig. Everybody was running to dig the gold. And you know what happens in a gold dig, right? When everybody's running to dig the gold. The person who is selling the spades makes the most money.
Yep.
It just made sense to sell better quality spades. If we could build a payment gateway which offered higher conversion rates, it was a slam dunk. And that's what we did. That was a value proposition, and we kept solving problems around improving conversion rates, and improving conversion. And that led us from one success to another. From being the number 14th entrant, we went on to become the second largest payment gateway in 2016, just behind BillDesk. We were processing $6 billion annually in 2016. BillDesk was, I think, around 10-ish at that point of time. That was, in a nutshell, my PayU journey.
Interesting. Moving from payments to credit, Elroy and Nitin, if you see today, there are about 63 million credit cards in India, which has definitely increased over the years, but still pales in comparison to about 900 million debit cards in the country. When you factor in multiple cards held by people, I think that number is much smaller, right? It's about 30 to 40 million unique customers.
35 million odd.
35 million odd, right? And what that means is card-based credit is still not readily available to people in India. And still a very small portion of the customer base that is possible.
See, on the other hand, Hemant, if you look at it, it's not like people are not getting access to credit in spite of that, right? So actually, if you look at the retail credit pie, what's really happening is it's been shifting from banks, which have been the traditional source of credit, to other sources. If you just look at the last 4 years, the bank share in the retail credit pie has come down from 76% to 32% today. And a lot of that has been now being fulfilled by new age digital lenders and NBFCs. So Nitin, from your vantage point on seeing this entire piece evolve over time, right? What are some of the trends that you saw in the entire credit space that led you to create a hypothesis regarding Uni? And talk to us to
Yeah.
how you took Uni from idea to product.
So Uni is actually backed by three insights
Mhm.
or three trends that we forecast.
Right.
The first is that in India, as you said, right, there are about 35 million credit card holders holding about 63 million credit cards.
Correct.
But the macro says there are 150 million people who shop online today actively. There are about 190 million Indians who have taken a loan in the past and have a presence on credit bureau. So you expect that over the next 5 years, as this 150 million online shoppers become 400 million online shoppers, as these 190 million people with presence on bureau becomes 400, 500 million people, you expect these 35 million Indians holding a credit card or equivalent product to become 100 million as well. At the same time, you expect the 60 million cards to become 200 million cards. Right? So the market is exploding in size. And because the market is exploding in size, you can just ride that way. Now, another thing which is very interesting about credit card industry is highly profitable and very, very attractive. SBI cards with their 12 million cards, they are valued at $12 billion. So, a million cards leading to a billion valuation is not far-fetched.
Correct.
Now, if you have 60 million cards, that means 60 billion in market cap. Tomorrow, if you have 200 million cards, that's like 150, 200 billion in market. So, an incremental $100 billion worth market cap is expected to get built in solving for credit card kind of products. And that's why you see not just me, but many people attempting credit card. That's our thesis number one.
Right.
Our thesis number two, or the trend two as we call it, is that credit card in terms of product maturity, customer experience maturity, is very much like where e-commerce was in 2010 or food delivery was in 2015 kind of time frame. So do you remember these players, India Plaza, India Times, Infinity?
Correct.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They basically started e-commerce in it. But then Flipkart happened and Flipkart said, you know what, this experience can be meaningfully improved. And when Amazon and Flipkart meaningfully improved that experience, meaningfully improved the solves, access, trust, solved multiple problems, the market meaningfully expanded. The same opportunity was done by Zomato and Swiggy. It wasn't that home delivery did not exist, in 2014 and 15, right? You would still order at Domino's, you would still call up your favorite restaurant, get it delivery. But the way they made the entire experience seamless, the way they made and increased accessibility, the way they got users hooked onto this entire thing, right? They changed the game meaningfully. The same opportunity exists for credit cards today. If you look at your credit card, right, it is the best payment instrument ever created. But it does not work on UPI. There are no insights that you get on your spends. It's such rich data. Damn, if you have to find a refund, you cannot find a refund in it. You don't know if you got your refund or not.
Right.
You want to cancel a subscription, RBI has to come up with a rule to manage subscription instead of credit cards doing it intuitive.
Correct.
If you get an add-on card, right, first of all, it's hard to get, but then the OTP for the add-on card will still come on the primary card. I mean, it's ridiculous, right? The being so profitable, the features just don't exist on the product.
Yeah.
Further, if you start thinking customer experience, right, people use credit card for rewards. The reward store, right, is non-intuitive for everyone. It's a pain to redeem. The value of reward points keep on changing, right? This is not a product which is built for 2021. It's a product which was built for 2005 and has outlived its life. This experience needs to change. And what we are saying is that this experience, if you can meaningfully change, if you can build a very feature-rich product, experience-rich product, then that is what the customer today expects. And that's the trend that I'm predicting. This thing will happen to the credit card industry and fintechs will demonstrate what that means and banks hopefully will quickly follow. The third trend is segmentation. See, today, credit card is a very vanilla product, right? 30-day credit, rewards, where the quantum of rewards keep on changing. Our entire thesis is that there are multiple segments of customers with different needs. Somebody wants credit to work on UPI. Somebody wants, different credit periods. Somebody wants or cares about revolve interest. Somebody wants free FX, whatever, right? Everybody has different needs. you have to build products for different customer segments which are relevant to them. And today, enough experimentation or enough new products are not happening. If you can build that, right, you can expand the market and you can cater to individual segments better. That is also somewhere the neo-banking thesis, right? Neo-banking says exactly the same thing. The bank account is not evolved, right? Different segments have different needs. You can build better products for individual segments. The same is true for credit cards. So these three things are what are our thesis and led to the creation of Uni. To basically build better products more relevant for a customer segment, build feature-rich, experience-rich products, and to ride on this wave of credit card which is expected, which we are seeing currently.
So Nitin, if you have to distill Uni into a simple card proposition, right, or proposition for your customers, how would you define your current product proposition?
So our current proposition or our first product that we call, right, it also starts with a very interesting insight.
Right.
We observe that most households in India, once or twice a year, will go through a short-term liquidity issue.
Correct.
In a particular month, their expenses will be 30,000-40,000 rupees more than their income. And the reason could be anything. They were shifting houses, they bought something for the home, went on a holiday, there was a medical emergency, paid school fees of it, whatever, right? Some issue. Or issue could also come from the income side. I was changing my job, my full and final did not come, my sales bonus did not come, or I lost my job, right? Whatever.
Yeah.
So people to deal with this 30,000-40,000 rupee issue, they don't know how to take a personal loan. It's a 2-year loan.
Correct.
So the way they deal with it is that they will dip into their savings, break a fixed deposit, they will borrow from friends or family, they will revolve on their credit. So for these customers who are higher risk, better quality, we have launched this card, Pay Later card, which is called Pay One Third. It automatically divides all your transactions into 3 parts, paid over 3 months at 0 additional cost. And since it's a Visa card, it just works everywhere where Visa is accepted. And on the other hand, if you have money to pay us back early at end of first month, like you pay your typical credit card, then you get 1% reward or cashback. It's the customer's choice. So what we have basically offered to the customer is flexibility, where they can get 1% reward for paying through this card. And if they let go of that 1% reward, then they can pay over 3 months to take care of those, unforeseen liquidity issues. We have married this with instant onboarding. You get a digital card within 4 minutes, a physical card in 3 days, with contextual transparency so that, nobody's getting the better of you. All our charges are GST inclusive. You always know what you are paying and why, how much, right? No, nothing hidden. And yeah, here we are, where we have found a very, very strong product market fit. I'm sure you have seen some of our unboxing videos. Many of them have gone viral.
Yeah. I think, Nitin, at least I am completely sold on the hypothesis that you have. Elroy, what about we quit our jobs and maybe we should also start a card company? What do you think?
Why not? Even? It's not a bad idea.
It's a good idea. Yeah. Get 1 billion cards, you are worth $1 billion.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what caught my fancy. $1 billion. Nitin, but as you spoke about your product, you said that you can pay in 3 easy installments. There is no interest. So as a customer, I'm not complaining. But as a business, what's the revenue model behind it?
Yeah, so if you think about it, right, when you do the weighted average credit period for 3 months,
right?
See, as an institution, the cost of funds are low.
Correct.
For a customer, the cost of funds are high. Now, when that customer gives up that 1%, as an institution, your cost of funds are enough so that in that you can fund that 3 monthly.
Right.
So first of all, from a cost perspective, it is not dilutive, so dilutive to the player as it might seem like, because as an institution, your cost of funds is low vis-a-vis individual customer. The second thing is that you make interchange from the Visa card, right, which is very meaningful income. Yeah. So that's your first source of income. Your second source of income is your subvention income that you make from brands when you sell longer tenure EMIs. So we have, for example, tied up with many subvention networks to offer. So let's say walk into a Chroma store, you want a 0% EMI for 12 months on a Samsung fridge, right? You can also get it on Uni. So while Pay One Third works everywhere, 12-month EMI will be available on specific stores on specific brands, right? So in that case, the brand submits it and you get paid that money. Alternatively, let's say the customer paid school fees, he gets paid in 3, but he wants to convert it to pay into 12. He can do that and pay interest to us for converting into a long-term EMI. That's another revenue source for us. And then there are multiple other revenue sources which are fee based, right? If a customer doesn't pay on time, a late fee will be applied. While we're very transparent about it, but the customer still has to. Or there are cross sell revenue that you make because the customer is highly engaged with you. So all these meaningfully add up as income for you to make money.
That's pretty interesting, Nitin. I'm also curious on who your typical customer is. So is your typical customer a mass affluent customer base, or are you actually looking to widen the net?
So today we are underwriting a customer which is thick on bureau.
Okay.
See, if you think about it, right, in some ways, what we are doing is we are offering risk-based pricing. We are going to the customers who are better in risk, higher quality risk.
Correct.
And we are saying that when you had an emergency, right, you did not have a clean solution, barring revolving on your credit card. And if you are very, very high credit score, you would get a personal loan for 12%, but you revolve on your credit card at 48%, 40% plus GST. So to those best risk customers, we are saying, why don't you pay over 3 months for free? If you think about it.
Yeah.
Right. So somewhere this product, Pay One Third, is actually, we can only give it to a subset of credit card users.
Right.
We can't even give it to all credit card users. So we only give it to very, very high quality users. Today we are underwriting this is bureau, and we give it to both credit card users and non-credit card users. But to qualify for Pay One Third, your risk needs to be really pristine. You need to be really, really good customer. Not everybody can get it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, to some extent, Nitin. I just had a follow-up question there.
Right? Yeah.
So, are you also looking at using surrogate sources in the future as your data you have on your customer starts increasing, right? Are you looking at a more data-driven approach that goes beyond the traditional thick file at the bureau to also extend some of these features to other customers?
Yeah. So we will solve for that. We'll solve for new to credit. At that point of time, we will use alternate sources of data to give this product to those customers too. We are in the process of figuring those things out. As a new company as well, right? Your risk appetite is relatively low. You're more conservative.
Yeah, until you have scaled up and reached a decent scale.
Yeah. So while many fintechs start from catering a underserved segment, which do not have access to credit, we on the other have started from the other extreme, where we are going to a customer segment which has huge access to credit, has the best risk through a superior product.
Interesting, Nitin. I also seen some of your unboxing videos like you mentioned earlier, right? And also some of the pre-launch ads, especially the one with the Japanese Sword Master. That was pretty interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah. So launching this whole product proposition, I think it must have been a marathon session for you, especially since a lot of last year was kind of a pseudo lockdown thanks to COVID. So can you tell us a little about the challenges you faced when launching Uni?
So we actually started operations in Uni on October 1. That's when the first employee joined. So in some ways, we actually were able to launch a open beta within 9 months of starting up from scratch.
Right.
And I think we got really lucky that way. Thanks to God, I think we found great partners. We found great people. We actually, we sometimes ourselves couldn't believe that where we have reached in 12 months' time. We just celebrated our first anniversary. We just couldn't believe ourselves that we could get to this point. I think God has been very, very kind, very, very honestly. I think the learnings we had we had launched a similar product in Ola Financial Services. I had attempted credit cards in PayU. This is actually my fourth attempt at building a credit card. Fourth. Not many people know this. I think because this is fourth, we got really lucky. We could avoid many pitfalls and many mistakes. And if you look at our entire leadership team as well, right?
Yeah.
My co-founder and CRO Lakshmi, he was running risk for Bajaj Finance EMI business. My co-founder and CPO Prateek, he built Ola Money Postpaid. My VP Engineering Abhishek Gupta, he was the principal architect behind LazyPay. Right? We all came from the world of pay laters and were leading risk, engineering, product, business there. Right? I think we just I think a lot of those things came together, and a lot of fate and luck came together to help us get to this point in years time.
Nice. And Nitin would pray that the good journey that you have had continues. If you have to put that, you have to put that good traction that you've got in some numbers, if you can share that, and also some interesting anecdotes, success stories that your customers would have shared with you with the product.
So one customer called up one day and said, I've converted this pay 1/3 transaction into pay early. Now I want to convert it into pay 1/3 back. And at that point of time, we allowed conversion only one time, right?
Right. Okay.
We were like, why would you want to do that, right? He's like, dude, the stock market has generally crashed to 1,000 points. I want to put my money into buying stocks. It's like, oh shit, I didn't realize, right? So I thought that liquidity issue will come only because there is a need like expense.
Right.
But people were leveraging the card because they felt they can use the excess cash to earn money in the stock market, right? It just came as a fascinating surprise. I couldn't believe it myself. Similarly, I mean, every day, right, one of the features that people have loved us most is chatting on WhatsApp. So let's say you want to talk to let's say you want to talk to care of any player in the market, any brand, right? What do? You would go to their app and start click on customer care, or alternatively you will go to Google and find the phone number.
Yeah.
The way you do it in Uni is like you open your WhatsApp and you search for Uni cards.
Okay.
Right? We send you messages like your statement, etc. Right? So you have messages from us. Now you just open the WhatsApp chat with Uni cards and you write in your problem. That's it.
That's great.
So nobody has, we are so used to talking on WhatsApp with everybody around us, but brands.
That's right. Yeah.
We said, as Unicards, we want you to talk with us like you talk with everybody else on WhatsApp. Just search for us and start writing your question. We'll answer it right away. And we work 24/7 on care. So you can try this at 2 a.m. for fun or any time for fun. We'll answer. Right? That second thing I think has been hugely appreciated internally when we receive customer messages.
I'm very sure, Nitin. And Nitin, how does your product roadmap look like? We are anyways unboxing the first part of your product, but you also gave hints of what lies in the future. What lies in the future for Uni?
I think what I am personally very excited about is unlocking use cases which have never been solved for before using a credit card.
Interesting.
So if you think about it, right, very intuitively we use bank account for certain spends. We don't use credit line for certain spends, like paying rent, like paying school fees.
Yeah.
And if you start paying these rents and school fees out there in the market, right, then people will charge you 1.5% markup.
Correct. Right.
Now, as a customer, I don't like that, right? I want to pay rent, but I don't want to pay 1% extra for that. And at the end of the day, you get those rewards. The rewards take time. It's like 0-0. Kuch fayda to hua nahi, par wo magajmari zyada ho.
Correct.
I think there is an opportunity where, as issuers, you solve for these use cases without charging the customer extra. So what you will see us do in the short term is take new use cases which were today done on a bank account and shift them onto the credit line free of cost.
Right.
That's the feature I'm very, very excited about. And you can keep doing this with every possible payment use case that you can think of. Correct. Today, let's say you're loading a Paytm wallet, right?
Yeah.
Paytm charges you a markup, right? A convenience fee.
Mm-hmm.
Why do they charge a convenience fee? Because in turn they have to pay that convenience fee, right? To the acquirer. And from that interchange, then that fee that Paytm pays, acquirer makes money, Visa network make money, issuer gets a part of it, and then the issuer has to issue rewards. It's so painful for the customer, right? Customer is like, यार मैं बैंक अकाउंट यूज कर लेता हूँ, वरना मार्कअप देना पड़ेगा. Now Paytm ने सबके लिए API खोल रखी है. Anybody can load Paytm wallet free of cost. You know that, right?
Right.
So why have issuers not integrated with Paytm wallet and allowing Paytm wallet loading free of cost? Allow करता अपनी ऐप से? क्या हर्ज है?
No one does that. No one does that at all.
Right? So these are the use cases that you will see us launch very soon.
Awesome. Very interesting.
Nitin, also, what's your view on secured cards? Because that's one type of class of cards that's not really never taken up in India.
I think it's pretty sad. I think secured card is not the way to solve for
Correct.
people need for credit card when you cannot underwrite. I think the way to solve that problem is low and grow. You give them small lines and then you grow them. Secured card is not the way. I think secured card is a is a bad excuse
Okay.
for poor underwriting.
And Nitin, if someone wants to know more about Uni or wants to get in touch with you, other than the WhatsApp channel that you just spoke about, how can they do that?
Just drop
Perfect.
me a line at nitin@uni.club.
Excellent, Nitin. We'll include those details in the show notes. Thanks a ton, Nitin, for taking the time to speak with us today.
Sure. Anytime. Thank you.
That's it from India FinTech Diaries for this week. Do log on to website indiafintechdiaries.com for exclusive content. We also started a Substack newsletter, and if you haven't yet subscribed, we would highly urge you to do so to get regular updates from us on what's happening in the Indian fintech space.